Alright, and we're back with round one. Had to get that video sorted out. This looks okay. I can go Basilicus Creature turn 2 into nothing but eventually Death Cult Road. That's alright. It's hard to ask for too many more than 2 lands, so okay, my opponent has mulliganed to 6 and capped. And we are on the play. Undercity Plague is probably actually best against Orzhov, so hopefully the white means my opponent is playing Orzhov and not Boros. It's definitely just too slow for Boros. Against Boros, I would almost certainly side it out for a rat. Possibly another Shielded Passage, but probably a rat. Alright, I'll go ahead and attack because I've got Dutiful Thrall on cleanup. I could extort. If my deck and hand were more aggressive, I would, but I will instead just keep Dutiful Thrall's regeneration up. If I was super aggressive, I would be willing to trade or just let the damage through, but I'm not. Okay, I cannot yet play my Death Cult Road, but I've got options. I've got Shielded Passage and Executioner Swing. I would most like to Executioner Swing the Syndic, because Extort is a pain. Which is part of why we're playing it. Alright, we've got our Syndicate Enforcer online. Let's go ahead and attack. Obviously, it is technically correct to wait on playing my Syndicate Enforcer until second main phase. I'm trying to get better at the game of Magic. I'm pretty sure that right now my opponent had nothing. But it's good to play that way, otherwise you will never get into the habit. Actually, one thing he could have had was the combat trick that would give first strike and flying, in which case I would want to keep my Shielded Passage up. So, you know, we play these ways to learn, but also later we're like, oh yeah, that was a good reason to do that. So, it is good to practice the habit. Alright, my opponent is very, very stuck on lands. I'm going to go ahead and attack my Syndicate Enforcer. I'm willing to trade my Shielded Passage for one of the only creatures that he has, since he has so few. Also, this is likely to convince him that I have a trick, which, if nothing else, will make him scared. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get that there. I will extort twice. The War of Shielded Passages. That's actually pretty awesome. Go ahead and yield to that, which means from now on I should be able to just hit OK. So it turns out that it was okay that I did not play my Balustrade Spy. Okay, he is in fact Boros, so I'm going to side out the Undercity Plague. Okay, so they're all going to attack. Is it worth trading a Screecher with a Skyjack? No, I'd rather trade the Balustrade Spy with the Skyjack, I think. Despite the fact that it costs twice as much, I really like Extort. I will go ahead and trade my 3 damage in. I could block one of his creatures, but that's fine. Actually, I think my Balustrade Spy will probably just block his Syndic. I'm going to save up regeneration just to block some mana. Let's see part of my opponent's deck. Okay, just playing immediately. It could be said that we removed a much-needed lane from my opponent, which is okay. Although finally getting that mountain helps my opponent a lot. So I'll be taking 3 from the Skyjack and blocking these 2. If my opponent has a haste attacker, all of his attackers or all of his creatures will have haste. Okay, so if my opponent plays a creature, we may change what we block, and we will take a bit more damage. I kind of like not killing Hellraiser Goblin, just because it means my opponent can never block me. And since I kind of have a bigger force right now, that's not bad. My opponent doesn't have a ton of permanents in the battlefield, so Undercity Plague would actually really punish him. Because he'd have to sacrifice 2 things, and he can't just happily sacrifice 2 lands. That's pretty significant in his position. So, Undercity Plague is good just mostly because my opponent got stuck, but that happens. Again, because my opponent is intending to be an aggressive deck, I'm gonna play something faster instead. Okay, so it's unfortunate that my opponent stole my creature. I'm going to take 3, 5, 7. Okay, this is very good. So what do I want? I've got Balustrade Spy to block something. I can kill a creature with Spectacle. I'll probably... probably attack with these 2 because I really don't want to use them to block. I could attack with the Thrall because I won't have Regenerate up. I think I'll actually do that. And I'm going to keep my bat back so I can trade it with the Skyjack if I want to. That will let me use the Spectacle on the Syndic, which means I can essentially wipe his board next turn in exchange for my Screecher and my removal spell. So yeah, Spectacle for Syndic, these 2 trade, and Goblin gets eaten by Balustrade Spy unless my opponent plays something better, in which case I probably just Grizzly Spectacle back. Okay, I wonder if I should have saved my Thrall, used Spectacle to kill Syndic, and then traded Thrall for Skyjack. it would have been a trade because I wouldn't have black mana up. The problem is if my opponent has a creature, then he would have 3, so he would be able to get Skyjack flying. So it's a question of whether or not my opponent has a creature he can play, or can steal one of mine again with something like Active Treason. So it's not really safe to bet on it. So I think I like the way I ended up playing. My opponent has a lot of decisions to make, apparently. Anyhow, we started seeing spoilers for the new set Dragon's Maze. I really like the new split cards. You can, I'm sure you've seen by now, you can cast either side, as with any split card, or you can pay for both and get both. So that's really cool. I think I'm kind of over-evaluating some of them just because it's a really cool effect, and I really like flexibility. They're very similar to charms. You can get your choice of effects. However, instead of having 3 options, the third option is paying extra and getting both. It's also, similar to Ticker or whatever, but you get choice of either or instead of just paying a ton of mana for both. I really like cubing, although I don't do a ton of it because it's not often an option for me. But okay, so now we know what we are going to Grizzly Spectral. So it may be worth considering options for cards that can counter or answer Grizzly Boros Reckoner, although we really may be playing them already. So we block, take 2. Lose 1 creature, that's okay. Okay, so we could Undercity Plague here. My opponent would take a total of 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage. Undercity Plague is going to be the win. I like that. We have other options, but again, this just wins. My opponent is tapped out, so there's nothing he or she could have. Debtor's Pulpit. Yes, please. I will put it on my flying creature, not that it matters right now. I also actually like ciphering onto Dutiful Thrall just because it's so darn hard to get rid of. It's easy to just chump block, but sometimes your opponent cannot. There it is, target player. Alright, Molten Primordial. Alright, so our opponent is kind of a slower Boros deck, just because it's got a 7-drop. I think the 7-drop is probably just bad on our opponent's deck. I'm not even sure about Debtor's Pulpit, but sometimes you gotta do it. Purge the Profane would be okay against some of the scary things my opponent has, like Active Treason. It's basically Gutter Skulk, Undercity Plague, Gutter Skulk, Purge the Profane, or Guild Score, or Shielded Passage. I think since I've got so many 4-drops, Gutter Skulk is just the pick. Alright, this is not bad. Got 2-drop that can help stall. We've got Executioner Swing to help stall, and I've got my good 5-drop. Good, getting some more removal. I have to check my opponent's name to see if it means something backwards. Sadly, no. My opponent has a slightly better true drop than I have, but that's fine. I like rats. I'll play rats all day. I should get into whatever format it is that people play relentless rat decks in. Alright, we've got a couple of ways to kill that. Which we will not bother doing right yet because it's better to get Basilicus Creature online. At this point I'm going to start hitting F4 instead of F6. F4 waits until your opponent plays something and otherwise passes the turn. So it is good like if you have counter mana up or something. Alright, my opponent probably has a trick here. Probably Shielded Passage. I'm willing to trade a rat for his Shielded Passage in order to avoid taking damage. Also, making my opponent play the trick means that they'll have to waste something on mana, which is also good. It will slow him down if he has a 3-drop. Okay, Martial Glory is okay. It's obviously one of the better tricks he could have, but at least we got rid of it. Okay. I could hold up removal or something, but I think it's best to just get the pet online and extort. I would probably trade the Kingpin's Pet with the Syndic of Tides. That seems a little bit weird, but I want to preserve my life total since my opponent has some scary stuff. Especially like active treason. So I think I'm best off trading this. Plus, really the important part of Kingpin's Pet is the extort. And Syndica also has extort. Shanktail. So, unfortunately, we're just trading with all of his combat tricks. Now, at least, we get to get Guardian of the Gateless online and threaten to block both of my opponent's creatures. Obviously, as we've seen, there could just be combat tricks all day. But again, we will make our opponent have them. The more we see, the less likely it is our opponent will have them. And after this, our handful of removal will get increasingly good. Might be worth just glaring the Syndic to or Orzhov Charm. Yeah, if I play Dutiful Thrall and Extort, that will leave me Orzhov Charm and Killing Glare and Executioner Swing. Killing Glare would only be active on these creatures. If my opponent plays a new one, it might not be. That's fine. It is important to remember not to attack with Basilicus creatures. I'm so used to having my opponent's creatures be tapped from attacking that I was, for a second, like, Oh, I could, no, I can't attack. That would be bad. I could kill a creature now, just to I could have done so beforehand to prevent extort and to prevent Bomber Core from making me regenerate. But I think I would rather see, at least wait until beginning of combat to see if my opponent plays anything in first main. If my opponent doesn't, I think I may actually Orzhov Charm the Syndic. Which means maybe I should have beforehand, but, you know, my opponent could play a haste creature that's more important. I have enough mana now that Killing Glare would work on Boros Reckoner, so it would Executioners me. I want to make sure that I save some of my removal just in case something scary happens. I will go ahead and extort just because since my opponent will not have 3 creatures, I don't have to regenerate Dutiful Thrall. Or I'm unlikely to have to. Also, extorting helps to stem some of the blood loss from the Orzhov Charm. Okay, what could my opponent have here? I will have a 4/4, so it would have to be like Martial Glory, otherwise a Premium Trick. I'm gonna wait this turn, hold on to some removal, and be able to execute Killing Glare if my opponent has a trick. It could be a Blood Rush card, easily. Yeah, okay, it's Scorchwalker. Maybe I should have just blocked just so that I'm not a 3. That's a kind of scary place to be. Okay, Grizzly Spectacle. So now we really have some answers. That's good. I could attack with Dutiful Thrall and regenerate it and Executioner Swing, but that won't leave enough for a good Killing Glare. I could attack with both creatures and just bet on my removal being enough, but I'd rather keep a little bit of safety. Thankfully, my opponent does not have an Extorter, which is very, very good. But also, my opponent does not know that my hand is an ideal amount of removal, essentially. Alright, so if we can kill any of 2 of my opponent's creatures, that would be awesome. Okay, I think I will go ahead and Killing Glare something. Is there anything my opponent could have? Martial Glory, I can't... Oh no, Martial Glory wouldn't be big enough. I don't think so. So I will save 1 mana to extort with. This turn I could Grizzly Spectacle if I needed. I'm going to play my lands just because I've got extort, so I want to have extra mana. I will just sit on my removal and deal 1 damage per turn until the end of the game. Plus extort triggers. Eventually I'm sure I will draw more creatures, but... Okay, that's a pain. Thankfully my opponent cannot do anything with it right yet, but... We do have two good blockers at least. I think if my opponent does not attack, then I will probably just save my removal. I want to be able to take out some of the scary threats. If I could Executioner swing, I would, but again, I can't do that unless my opponent attacks. I'm not going to extort, I'm going to save up Grizzly Spectacle. This pretty much tells my opponent that I have Grizzly Spectacle, but for all my opponent knows, I could be doing that just to mess with him, but I don't think that almost anyone would do that to be tricky. If my opponent attacks with both, I can block Aristocrat on Bomber Core, regenerate Dutiful Thrall after blocking Ember Beast, and Executioner swing Ember Beast. I have the mana for that, plus 1 extort. So that is an alternative. Again, I'm saving this Grizzly Spectacle absolutely as long as I can. Come on, let's go. Let's see it. Oh, my opponent says, oops, I counted wrong. So. Oh, my opponent's not going to like this. I'm going to hold back my Guardian so that I'll have both. Yeah. I can attack with the Aristocrat. If my opponent blocks, he'll have to block with both, and then I can Executioner swing the Ember Beast and basically trade 2 for 2. I think I'm going to do that just to start getting more damage going. Okay, do I extort? Yeah, I think I do. Oh, I think I might have finally figured out what my opponent counted wrong. My opponent may have been counting for Primordial. Yep, 6/7 means he can play Primordial, take a Guardian. I can block all of his stuff with my other Guardian, but I'd lose both Guardian. No, I'd lose the defending Guardian. That's rough, but probably the best I got. Thankfully, he cannot Debtor's Puppet and Primordial. I'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that, though. It was very good that we saw our opponent's red Primordial last game, so we have an idea what he might be going for. I wish I had figured out a little bit earlier. I might have held back Cartel Aristocrat, but to be honest, I probably wouldn't have. Okay, what could my opponent have here? My opponent could have some combat tricks. I don't think that there's a reason to block with 2 of them, so. My creature will be a 5/5, so it will take a combat trick for me to not just eat both. Alright. Bomber Core gets to survive. That's nice and all. Okay. My opponent should have... Okay, I did pick order. Okay. Alright, so my opponent played 2 cards to kill my Guardian. That could definitely be worse. Though if I had had mana up, that would have just been the craziest blowout. Okay, so my opponent has no cards in hand. My opponent does not have Primordial. That is good to know. My opponent wants me to be down to... Oops, I did not mean to not attack with the Screecher. I was going to attack with the Screecher and leave these 2 back in order to have additional blockers, because my opponent will be able to Debtor's Pulpit one of them this turn. That's what I was trying to say, is my opponent wanted to do that so that they could double tap. It's okay, I have good removal. I could sacrifice a creature to get protection from... No, I can't get protection from planes. I'm going to go ahead and use Grizzly Spectacle now so that my opponent has to, or does not get Bomber Core's ability. Then I can double block Bomber Core, I think. I think that's right. That saves my Executioner Swing, which I could use to kill Hellraiser Goblin, but I kind of like the Goblin. I'm down at 6. Yeah, I think I'll go to 4. My ability to extort has really helped keep me in the game. That's let me play a little bit more aggressively than I would have otherwise, and just given me some padding. Okay, so I need to keep at least 2 blockers. I will need another if my opponent draws removal, but if my opponent draws removal, then I'm dead. I'll need a total of 3 if he draws Madcap skills specifically. Otherwise, I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not quite enough to double extort. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I could extort a single time. I would be 1 mana short of extorting twice. Oh, wait. Yeah, I only have 1 extorter in play. Okay, so how about I keep Cartel Aristocrat and do a full throw back? That way I can get in significantly more damage and have... I guess I'm going to have lethal next turn no matter what. Right? So if I get in with 1 damage and extort once, things look great for me. So yeah, actually I'll keep everybody back except for the Screecher. The world in which I have to block with the Screecher to live is a world that I don't like. So it looks like round 1 is probably in our favor. Probably won. That card would have to be something very special If it was active treason, I would be okay, because I could block the other creature. If it was specifically the primordial, again, I could just block my opponents too. I think I'm okay here. Okay, my opponent conceded. Alright, on to the round 2.